Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for such a nice sound, and welcome to our breakout session by Entity Data. So I'm Taro Nakao from Entity Data, responsible for the global business enablement for telecom industry. So, okay, let me set the stage. And, we are going to have three sub-sessions. But before going into the details, I will talk about kind of the background context of this breakout session. So number one is the title. So unleash the Kraken. So what does it mean? I see a lot of question mark in the venue, and let me explain this first. So Kraken, as you know, is a monster, and we use this Kraken name as a kind of the metaphor of the power of the open and disaggregated network. So the power of the Kraken is monstrous, but most of the power is still under the water. So if we can enjoy that kind of the monstrous power, we have to unveil that on all of the figure one by one, right? So that's why we set a stage like this. So here's the Kraken. You see the head and the tentacles and body. And so let's go one by one to unveil what is in behind, and through the discussion of the professionals from the CSPs and CNF vendors and system integrators. Okay. So we are going to start from the body. On the cloud native infrastructure will be the first topic. And second one is the tentacles, disaggregation at scale. And number three is the network intelligence. So this is the head, and every intelligence comes from the head, right? So this is a kind of the structure of this breakout session. But overall, very important is that we see the possibility of the open and disaggregated network, but we are still at the very beginning stage when it comes to the commercialization, right? So, which means we still have a lot of challenges to tackle, right? So, after unveiling on all of these kind of the hidden power, so this is a key to have the kind of the new era of the open network. So I'm just thinking about the history. So it's like 1980s or 90s of the computing world. So at that moment, we are talking a lot about the open architecture in the computing world. But nowadays, no one is talking about the openness of the computing world. So it's obvious, right? So at that moment, we need a lot of discussion, we need a lot of challenges, we need a lot of trials, blah, 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 but I believe that the same thing will happen in this telecom network world as well. So now we are going to have the discussions, but this is a kind of the 10 years ago of the 10 years in the future. So I believe the power of this monster, and so let's unveil the figure of the monster at the end of this session. So we are going to go in these three topics, but for this voyage, we need a chief sailor, right? So I'd like to introduce our chief sailor who navigates our voyage. Hugo Nava, please.
Thank you, Taro. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome. We are really glad to have you here today. We are going to discuss several things and several interesting things. And in order to do that, let's set a little bit the mood. To begin our journey, we will turn our attention on the cloud-native infrastructure. That means our Kraken formidable body. This component serves as the sturdy foundation upon which modern computing world is built. Like a Kraken's body, cloud-native infrastructure provides the structure and support for our digital endeavors. It embodies the principle of agility, scalability, and efficiency, much like the Kraken bodies empowers it to navigate the depths with power and purpose. So in order to understand this, I would like to welcome Luis, Bhanu, Lakshmi, and Stavros to come inside with us. Please, let's give them a warm welcome. Hello, guys. How are you?
Awake?
Still? We need coffee?
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, in order to start talking about this, I would like to address to Luis. Luis, as we know, there are many challenges of cloud-native infrastructure practices today. Which you consider the most relevant from the CSP point of view, and you, as the head of Infra and Cloud in Telefonica, follow any specific stack infrastructure recommendation? Please, give us your thoughts and share with the audience about it.
Okay. I think that the main challenge is the existing fragmentation, the lack of portability today. Portability is one of the key elements of a multi-site cloud-native architecture. And it refers to the capability to deploy a workload in any site, in any cloud stack. And this is not happening today. There are many dependencies today when we want to integrate a workload and deploy it in an infrastructure, and there are many dependencies with infrastructure and the hardware, and this requires ad hoc configuration, and in the end requires a specific certification for that deployment. And this is driving us to a landscape of many certifications, many different certification programs, and this is very fragmented. We have certification programs from the application providers, also from the cloud stack providers, the hardware providers as well, and even the operators. We have our own certification programs. And certification is costly and take time, so we should try and reduce this, somehow being more cloud native and promoting portability, promoting this capability to deploy anywhere. And this is the challenge. And there's some initiatives out there trying to address this. One of them is Silva. Silva is an open source project within Linux Foundation that tries to address this and standardize somehow the cloud native world and promote portability in two ways. On the one side, by building an implementation of a cloud stack reference stack, building on top of a basic Kubernetes the extensions required for the telco applications, the new telco applications. Things like supporting data plane acceleration or enhanced security, for instance, and doing this adding these extensions in a vendor agnostic mode, in a standard mode, trying to be a standard. On the one side, having this reference platform, and on the other, Silva also tries to provide a validation program so that the application providers can demonstrate that their solutions are cloud native by deploying them successfully on top of this reference stack. So the challenge is the lack of portability, and I think we should be addressing it, and there's some initiatives working in this direction.
Thank you, Luis. And based on those challenges, I mean, you clearly stated about portability, and thanks for sharing with us about Silva project. I think it's a really interesting approach. That will take me to keep going deep into challenges. So I would like to ask something to Lakshmi, in this case. Lakshmi, related to the challenges on the cloud-native infrastructure, how VMware is responding to several things: scalability and elasticity, containerization and orchestration, but at different network domain level. Could you please share your thoughts?
Sure. Well, clearly, to tame the Kraken, or to be able to operate a Kraken, you need a great body. And that's kind of a strong, resilient body, and that's really what VMware brings to the party in terms of the infrastructure. We've been focused on the last few years. Obviously, we had a large installation of NFVI infrastructure, and over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, we've been helping customers on this journey, which is relatively new to telcos, which is cloud native. And so, excuse me, with our 5G platform, we really focused on working with application vendors to enable them to try and simplify the certification and deployment process and really accelerate the ability of service providers to deploy these applications. So we have our cloud stack, which is actually multi-cloud and a hybrid cloud. So we have customers that are deploying on their own private cloud infrastructure, but yet for scalability, elasticity, some workloads, they want to be able to deploy in a public cloud. But they don't want to take on the complexity of having to learn cloud tools for each different hyperscaler vendor, and they want to have that consistency across core, RAN, and public cloud. And this is where VMware's infrastructure is designed to enable the seamless management across these different areas. And in terms of scalability, you might have heard at the show, you heard Dish talk about the fact that they really got the first 5G SA Open RAN network that is based on VMware's technology that's actually managing across these different layers, core cloud and public cloud. And there's about 20,000 sites. And I think the key to this deployment velocity is really around automation and simplification of that deployment process. And so that's kind of what we've been focused on, is how do we simplify the deployment process. Obviously, the whole industry is learning on cloud native, and I think over the last couple of years, the CNF and VNF vendors, the CNF vendors have actually really learned a lot in that journey, and now you're starting to see the fruits of that come into play. So.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And there was one specific part in your question that I would like to stay with, and it's about multi-cloud orchestration, okay? And there is different approach within the market, and I would like to ask Bhanu specifically. In the case of Aarna, what's your approach in terms of the hybrid multi-cloud strategy you are bringing in?
Sure. So in general, if you see, right, traditionally the entire telco cloud infrastructure, primarily on the on-prem, due to various reasons like data regulations and the security. But later, they start using the hyperscalers, be it any public cloud, AWS, GCP, or AWS, or anything. The reason being primarily they wanted to leverage the compute and the storage, which is at the edge. And later it comes to the hybrid multi-cloud strategy, where telcos wants to leverage, deploy certain applications to take the advantage of both hybrid as well as the multi-cloud. Take an example, right? So the RAN, which is in the private network, that is possible, whereas the core can be on the public. So RAN is on the private and core is on the public. Both will talk to each other via this hybrid multi-cloud strategy. And here, again, in the multi-cloud, the cloud can be any. One is the connectivity part. For the connectivity, they can choose one vendor. And for the storage requirements, they can go with another vendor. And again, for the compute. For all these, the reason being, right, so with the advancement of the 5G and the IoT devices, the compute should be close to the device, which is IoT device. So that's where this hyperscalers will bring in. And with all this, the challenge is like managing the entire infra. So that part, there, the orchestrator has to be more intelligent to manage the deployment across the various clouds. So So our strategy is like currently what the challenge we see is like there is no standards, right? So on-prem, the way of deployment is one way, and hybrid and multi-clouds, the deployment is another way. So hopefully the O2 standards will standardize all this, and so that the deployment will be seamless across all these on-prem as well as the cloud. And from our Aarna point of view, we focus both on infra, so which is the deployment part, also on the CNFs and the CNAs. So far we are talking about only the CNFs, which are CU and the DU part, and also the CNAs, which adds a lot of value, especially in terms of the Fyuz applications.
Thank you, Bhanu. Thank you. And in order to wrap up this first part of the panel, don't worry, you're not leaving yet. Stavros.
Yes.
We have been saying, okay, let's go to a cloud environment. We have been saying, let's move all the network functions there. But the thing is, this will generate some actions, some strategies in terms of day two, because as Bhanu was saying, let's change the network function, let's evolve to another cloud, and so on. So in terms of day two and cost managing and optimization, what can you tell us about from the entity data point of view? What are we doing? How we're seeing this?
Yeah, certainly. FinOps comes to our rescue, definitely. I think it's good to separate the different motivations from an objective perspective between private and public clouds. I think in the context of FinOps, where the movement started with the Linux Foundation, the initial aspiration was to really prevent the bill shock that a lot of the customers were getting when they were moving their workloads to the public cloud on a monthly basis. So it was pretty much an OpEx optimization exercise. But as we look at the private clouds, where some of the journey started much earlier, the motivation of FinOps really is more on the CapEx optimization. Really how you can drive the cost avoidance narrative, how you can really lengthen the life cycle of your infrastructure investments, especially in a period of economic uncertainty where the budgets are under a lot of scrutiny. And certainly, a lot of people confuse FinOps with financial operations. Yes, there is an element of that, absolutely. However, it's actually combining the ethos of shared responsibility of DevOps, something that's very close to our heart as entity data, and really bringing the sense of ownership of your costs and finances in a streamlined manner. So really understanding how your applications consume your infrastructure and how you can actually optimize initially in a reactive manner, considering some of the infrastructure investments and deployments started in the telco cloud space, in the private space, 7, 8 years ago. It's truly important to really go and optimize what you got in using best use of the tools from the ecosystem in a reactive manner, but also really moving ahead, try to understand how we can leverage intelligence and automation and move towards a more proactive way of running operations going forward. And I think FinOps does give us that capability to really look holistically how we can drive the industry forward in a more proactive manner, because the complexity of disaggregation is quite vast.
Thank you, Stavros. And that complexity, at the end of the day, putting all that puzzle together, will always, or it's basically bringing to the industry a lot of conversations around security. And based on that point of view, and Luis, once we jump into 5G architectures, everything is cloud native. That's as simple as that. So from the CSP point of view, and in terms of security, what considerations are you taking right now as actions?
Okay, security is a must for sure in 5G, same as in other architectures, so we don't take it for granted. It's something that we have to incorporate. And in Telefónica, we use as reference the DHC standards for security and also the ENISA, European Organization for Security. So this is something to be considered, for sure. But in this specific case of multi-site, multi-vendor, hybrid environment, as we have been commented, there's one specific characteristic, and is the decoupling that we are doing. We are decoupling the infrastructure from the application. This is in order to optimize the resources to allow sharing of the infrastructure by different applications. And this decoupling means that we have a layer architecture now, and we have to secure each one of the layers independently, and also the relationships between them. So we need to have security logs in all the layers. We have to do a scanning in different layers, for instance, scanning the software of the infrastructure, but also the application. Of course, having centralized management to identify security risks, but we have to manage them all and identify how one security risk could impact other in a different layer. We need to have access security to the different layers and have, for instance, the use of APIs secure to the different parts of the architecture. And this coupling also has, introduces another element, and is that we are decoupling in order to allow sharing of resources. Since we are sharing resources, we are having multiple applications making use of the same servers or resources in general. So we have also to do some kind of segmentation so that one application, security risk from one application that is running in the same infrastructure is not affecting other applications. So we have to introduce mechanisms such as namespacing, multi-tenancy, for instance, to guarantee this segmentation, or securing the communication at all levels, even between the pods in the containers, because these pods are, again, running on the same hardware for our infrastructure for all the applications. So these are considerations to take into account, specific for this environment that is decoupled.
Thank you, Luis. And Lakshmi, about security, how VMware is supporting, for example, Telefonica and other CSPs that are transitioning this phase? I mean, which kind of measure?
He just made my pitch for me. Actually, no, what you said is absolutely relevant, and we have designed our infrastructure with that in mind. And our experience with enterprise data centers, but adopting it to meet the ETSI standards and the deployment scenarios that telcos and use cases that go to has actually been a main tenet of what we do as VMware. So for example, things you talked about, micro-segmentation of the data center, having workload-specific security, having consistent security policies, whether it be in your private cloud, the public cloud, or wherever your deployment is, VMware enables that. Multi-tenancy, rule-based access control, all of those things are built in, intrinsic in terms of what we do with the platform. And of course, with ESXi is, I don't know, millions of workloads that are deployed on ESXi, enabling hypervisor level security, and now with Kubernetes, container level security is something that we have built in layer by layer by layer in our platform to really address those kinds of security concerns that you just outlaid. So it's really important to us and something that we focus on all the time. And not just that, it's not just about what you put in the product, it's also about best practices. And that's something that our years and years of deployments, we have over 150 customers, I don't know, thousands, if not tens of thousands of VNFs. I think we have about 1.5, 2 billion subscribers that are running on our platform. So based on that, we have a lot of experience, a lot of best practices that we really try to bring into play when we work with customers to enable them to deploy our infrastructure.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And at the end of the day, we are in let's say, an alive environment. I mean, we come from virtualization, we are standing in cloud ready, if we can call it that way, and transitioning to a cloud native point of view. So moving to that specific topic, Bhanu, how is Aarna handling this transition? Where are you guys standing at? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So if you see that with the advancement of the Open RAN, right, it's a disaggregation and the open interfaces. So it has given an opportunity to so many new players to enter into the market. Let us say, if someone in the past doesn't have any CUDU, they can come and develop. So when someone starts a new, right, they can obviously it starts with the cloud native. So the application, whatever they develops, that's a cloud native. But if the player which is already in the market, they might be having some of the products which is in the form of not cloud native. All right. So in such case, they also wants to move to cloud native applications, but it is going to take some time. All right. In that journey, first what they will do is they will make it cloud ready, and once the move from cloud ready to cloud native, it is going to take some time. So being an orchestrator, we need to support them as well. So it's not like, no, your application is not cloud native, we don't want to do orchestrated. So in such cases, what we do is like we closely look at what exactly the current application it is, and whatever the gaps which is, let us say, in case of cloud ready compared to the cloud native, they may not be having certain monitoring aspects and the logging aspects. These are all might be missing. Or the cloud ready application is completely monolith, that is obvious, right? So in such cases, we closely look at the application, and to onboard them, whatever the changes required on our side, we'll do it. So that can be in the form of controllers or some custom work. So to support all the additional features like auto scaling and monitoring aspects and whatnot, whatever the gaps, that we will fill it. And cloud native application, yes, they can enjoy some of the benefits of the infrastructure like auto scaling and the resiliency from the cloud native aspects.
Thank you, Bhanu. And in order to wrap up this session and close this first segment, Stavros, at the end of the day, this is a complex ecosystem, right? So we have been talking these days about the SI role to put together all the puzzle around and make this work. So from entity data point of view, what are consideration and values you are bringing in inside this recipe?
Certainly, it's a very complex ecosystem when you really go to that level of disaggregation, that's for sure. Certainly, we need to simplify things. And really, we've been talking a lot about network autonomy. We've been talking about self-organizing networks. But really, as a system integrator, to drive that vision forward, we can't really realize it unless we start looking at federated information models amongst various standards. We can't talk about service assurance without unified service models across the myriads of technology stacks that we are working with. We work with all the key partners in the ecosystem with a strong enterprise IT application background, but also with the telco DNA, because we are part of a very large group, and we are really fortunate to work alongside one of the operators on the leading edge of innovation, NTT Docomo, which gives us a level of foresight, particularly when you look at application onboarding challenges, because our customers are really suffered a lot from really getting it right the first time, getting error-free onboarding of virtualized network functions, which virtualized applications. So really applying the enterprise IT software development principles to how we manage our infrastructure and treating it as code is pretty key. And really, as we move towards cloud native, it is also extremely important that we handle the infrastructure lifecycle management together with the applications lifecycle management. They cannot be detached, because otherwise, we're really going down to a task-based automation, which we really want to really transition very largely towards end-to-end business process automation. And our value as integrator is really specify all these very high-value use cases, which gives us a sense of direction and drive the industry forward towards a realization of end-to-end business process automation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Thank you, Stavros. So I would like to ask you all to give a big applause to this excellent panel. So please, guys. And let's hope this Kraken body enables disaggregation at a scale. And that's why we delve now into the tentacles of our Kraken. represented by network disaggregation. Much like the Kraken tentacles extend its reach into a vast sea, network disaggregation stretches its influence across the networking landscape. This concept separates hardware from software, offering flexibility and customization to the Kraken tentacles that grasp the opportunities and challenges alike. Network disaggregation empowers us to design networks tailored to specific needs, enhancing efficiency and adaptability. In order to drill down this specific part of our Kraken, let's welcome Tom, Dave, and Doi-san to analyze this part, please. Welcome, guys, and thanks for being here today. I would like to get a little insight from Dave specifically. I mean, I've been in this community for some years now, and I know IP Infusion and Entity Data met here in this community. How do you see, or if you could please tell us, how are you guys from the Telecom Infra project enabling this ecosystem where the SI and network function, infrastructure providers can come together and change things on their common objectives? Please, Dave.
Thank you very much, Hugo. First thing I'd like to say is that I've got the first insight from you guys that I've got to pass on to our events team. You know, how do you wake up people and stimulate conversations just after lunch? You play the Kraken music really, really loud and everybody is wide awake. So thank you for that, it was really good. Now the insights, I think, let me explain what the Telecom Infra project is or TIP is. I mean, it's a non-profit trade association, quite a diverse community. So we have operators from the mobile space, from the fixed space, even non-terrestrial operators are driving work through TIP. We have network equipment manufacturers, test equipment manufacturers, system integrators. We have academia. It's very, very diverse. But the one thing that we all have in common is that we want to drive forward an ecosystem of open and disaggregated network infrastructure. And we do this across many different technology areas, end-to-end across the network. From the access side of things, so Open RAN is obviously one of the big ticket items, but open Wi-Fi and fixed broadband access, non-terrestrial. Transport, of course, is always going to be key, open optical and packet transport. There's always great if you can upgrade your access, but if you don't have the transport to backhaul it into the network efficiently, then you're not going to get the performance that you require. And core network and services, things like Metaverse Ready that we're driving forward as well. So we have a very, very healthy ecosystem of work, and we have a community that work together to drive work forward. And we're not a standards organization, I think that's kind of key. So we work together as a community to understand what the market priorities are for open and disaggregated networks. And our community of operators will tell us what their market priorities are. The vendors will understand this and start to build products towards that, both on the hardware and the software side. But as you understand, at some point in a disaggregated world, when you want to deploy it, you've also got to re-aggregate it and put it into the network as well. And that's where a lot of the work of the system integrators come in. So together, we engage, we work towards a common goal, and form these kind of partnerships together, such as Entity Data and IP Infusion, to drive these works into operators' commercial deployments, and that's key. Success for all of us within this community is not developing a spec or a piece of paper, but it's really making sure that we're getting commercial deployments. And once we're in the network, the lifecycle management and the operational side of this is something that the whole community is working towards as well.
Thank you, Dave. And that draws my attention because at the end of the day, we are talking a lot these days on collaboration methods. And I would like to drill down a little bit on that one. And Doi-san, please, could you please explain to the audience what's the collaboration between IP Infusion and Entity Data about?
Okay, thank you, Hugo. Let me introduce firstly the background of the collaboration with IP Infusion and NTT Group. This NTT is our mother's company, and the NTT Group organized the ION, Innovative Optical and Wireless Networks. That is the initiative to develop and utilize the optical technology and computing technology. And ION consists of three major technical fields: all photonics networks, digital twin, computing, and cognitive foundation. In this ION initiatives, the NTT Group and the IPE Fusion developed our own network OS named Breakouts, based on the IPE Fusion's network OS named Oknos, right? Yeah, and also the NTT Data, IPE Fusion and NTT Data just started the collaboration to expand and accelerate the disaggregate network with our product and solution. In terms of NTT Data, NTT Data is a system integrator, have a lot of experience of integration of the disaggregated network like the Open RAN with NTT Docomo, our sister companies, also the cloudification and NAS, network as a services. So we have a lot of experience of disaggregated network integration. So by using that kind of experience with IP Infusion's solution, we can accelerate the integration of the disaggregated network in commercial network, I believe.
Thank you, Doi. And I will stay a little bit with ION, Innovative Optical and Wireless Network. And why I will stay there, because I want Tom to give us a fancy look on what are your solutions about, what are you bringing to the table, Tom, please.
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. We're super excited about announcing our partnership with NTT Data. We believe that we'll bring an awful lot of value together to the community. IP Infusion is a network operating systems company. We specifically build open and disaggregated NOS solutions for the service provider marketplace, operators of all different types. We have been with TIP since the very beginning, a partnership there that's been very fruitful for us. We've had amazing meetings over the last several sessions where we've all had the opportunity to come together over the last years. Today, IP Infusion has about 600 customers that in one way or another utilize our main product that, as you said, Doi, named Oknos. Together, we have also worked to build a network operating system with NTT that we call Beluga NOS. We operate Oknos in really 4 specific use cases, and we think this is key because we believe that there's enormous value for service providers when they're able to leverage a disaggregated and open NOS across a number of different use cases. So specifically, we're focused on access, aggregation, transport, and also data center. So it's a very broad collection of use cases.
Thank you, Tom. And Tom, I mean, when we talk about disaggregated networks, there are a lot of challenges around. Actually, the first panel, you heard all the things that are doing in terms of cloud-native infrastructure. So I want to take a small look into the network functions as well. What kind of challenges have you been facing and encountering as long as this history began?
Sure, that's a great question. I'll take a couple that I think IP Infusion needs to take on, so challenges that we need to address directly, and then also some challenges that together with NTT Data we can begin to solve together. So the first one really is around maturity. This really comes up in just about every engagement that we have, and the question is a disaggregated NOS for my infrastructure mature enough to replace what I've been buying for the last 20 or 30 years? And in order for us to do that, we have to be sure that we are able to deliver similar functionality. We have to be sure that we are good at interoperability, because in the networks that we operate in, we rarely have the opportunity to be in a greenfield environment. There's a pre-installed infrastructure. It's a brownfield environment. We are interoperating with devices above and below us in most cases, and in some cases, some of those are very, very old. And so there's a requirement there for us to both test and then address any type of interoperability issues that might exist. And although the networking world today is very standards-based, you'd be surprised how many times those standards don't necessarily line up one-to-one. So we take a lot of ownership around bringing that to bear and making sure that we do the testing ahead of time that will allow for the ease of implementation and interoperability with multiple different devices. Now, we can also work together with our system integrator partners like NTT Data to make sure that before networks are turned on, when there's going to be a deployment of a disaggregated type, that we take the time to build the network, to test it thoroughly end to end, and to identify anything that may need to be addressed in terms of those types of issues. And so we can actually address some of that as IPI, and again, work with our partners to make sure that that goes seamlessly. Another challenge that I get asked about a lot is around the breadth of our solution set. I think that, open and disaggregated really means choice. And so one of the most important things that we do as a NOS manufacturer is to offer as broad an ecosystem as we possibly can. And that really starts all the way down with the ASICs that we support. So today we support multiple ASIC manufacturers, which we think is pretty unique in this particular space in the infrastructure. In addition to that, we support multiple white box vendors. So we have a broad ecosystem of that, and I believe that we support more white boxes today than any other disaggregated vendor. We have over 40 different white boxes from various manufacturers that we support, and we're adding to that all the time. It's an enormous challenge. It's a very expensive endeavor to constantly keep that innovating and moving along as new chipsets come out from the ASICs vendors and the white box vendors turn those into products. In addition to that, there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure that we have a broad ecosystem of optics, for example, and then we're also working with a large variety of partners. We're a global operation. Disaggregation is happening on a global basis, and we have to make sure that we have the right partners in place all around the world to deliver great solutions to service providers.
Thank you. And about that partnership, Toy, what are your thoughts on this specific part?
Actually, we are facing the same challenges. Yeah, I fully agree with Tom. Yeah, compared to the existing products, the disaggregated network are required of the integration with hardware and software. And the most important thing, we need to consider the collaboration with existing network. So I think it's a little bit easy to integrate only hardware and software, but we have to think about the existing systems. And also, we need to think about the same performance and the functionality as the existing product. So it's there are a lot of thinking. There's a lot of challenges, and we have to think about a lot of things. So it's very complicated. So that means we have to think about, think about the initial network design. So when we do the initial network design, we have to think about a lot of things. If we integrate the disaggregated network, as I introduced, as I said, so that's very challenges, not only for the company, but also the engineers as well. So to solve them, as I introduced, NTT groups organized ION and leading the several evaluations with software and hardware and with our partners. Actually, a member of the ION are now more than 130 companies. So with these companies, we are going to verify the combination of the software and hardware as well as the existing system. And also the NTT Data has participated in the several verification projects like TIP Candy and the TM Forum Catalyst project, and also the working together with IP Infusion. So by using this experience, then we can solve that kind of the challenges, I believe.
Thank you, Doi. And coming back to this, you mentioned TIP at Candy. Candy at TIP, sorry. Based on that, I mean, Dave, what kind of things you expect from an ecosystem such as the one IP Infusion and NTT Data are part of, that they can contribute and get, I think, a little bit more involved into the TIP?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some great comments from Tom and Taji as well. I think standards is essential, but it doesn't imply interoperability. And the other flip side of that is that no network is the same. That's true across the board. So what we've been focusing on, with our disaggregated cell-site gateways, Cassini and Phoenix, which are our, disaggregated optical routers of different capacities, is really about trying to establish a baseline of what the requirements for these products should be, driven by what the operators require. And even that, you try and get a level of consensus that may only be about, 80% of commonality for everybody. But that's 80% of commonality that you don't have to go and understand bilaterally through RFI processes and things like that. So that immediately helps to define a set of requirements that vendors can actually build towards and satisfy multiple different markets at the same time. I think by then establishing a test plan, which we publish a common industry test plan for what this looks like, this really helps lower the testing resources that we have as well. The idea being test once, deploy many as much as possible. But even doing that should only really achieve that 80% baseline of testing because no network is the same. So what we want to try and do within the Telecom Infra project is get to a state where we're performing this level of integration and moving towards a level of certification testing so that the operators who take these products and the SIs who help to integrate them only really need to focus on that 20% of integrating it into the various different networks that they have and going through that operator acceptance and not having to duplicate all the other 80% of testing that we can centralize and save time and resource on. So the future for what we want to do within these particular areas is to do some real commercial grade level of testing and do certification for these products. And that will really help to promote confidence in the operators that the products that have gone through these processes and the system integrators that have done this with the vendors, we showcase these guys on our TIP Exchange, which is our online marketplace. It's a channel to market. It shows visibility of where these products are, and the operators will have confidence that if it's been badged and certified by TIP, then it's going to work commercially in their own marketplace. And they only need to work on that level of operator acceptance that's specific for their own network deployment.
Thank you, Tom. Sorry, Dave. And since we have already the list from the TIP to the ecosystem, so I would like to ask Tom, what kind of things you expect from TIP?
Well, I'll first say, thank goodness for TIP. I think that it has made an enormous difference in the movement that IP Infusion is a part of. I think it's brought a lot of validation and credibility, and as you said, the standing test plans, the certifications and badges, it definitely lends credibility and allows us to move faster throughout this revolution, if I can call it that. In terms of the thing I'm most excited about, it would have been a request, but I think TIP has already been responsive enough to make it happen. I'll say that just yesterday our CEO was speaking at the Fiber Broadband Summit, and he talked about the success that we're having in that space. So as a use case for us, broadband aggregation is it's our hottest space. Over the last 18 months, we've brought on about 150 different unique operators around the world into disaggregation, and they've purchased from IP Infusion for the first time. That's 150 operators. So this is a place within disaggregation and the movement at TIP that I think is experiencing enormous traction and enormous success. There's an awful lot of people adopting this and moving in that direction. And the thing that I'm most excited about, I understand that middle of next year, TIP will be introducing a specific user group for disaggregated aggregation, which is a little bit of a tongue twister, disaggregated aggregation subgroup, and so I think that's fantastic. That is where we're seeing a lot of traction in the marketplace and a super big amount of value for the operators, and TIP will be moving there and bringing that message out even more broadly. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we may have to rethink the name, but it will.
Yeah, and Doi, what about you? In that collaboration path, which kind of things do you expect from the SI point of view that TIP can accelerate or contribute?
Yeah, good question. This is just my opinion, but I'd like to ask TIP to work more closely and together with other communities, like the TIP community have been working very closely with the Oran Alliance, right? And the reason why I'm asking is because cutting edge technology, a lot of the cutting edge technology are emerged all the time at the same time with these technology, cutting edge technologies. A lot of community and ecosystems also emerged. That's very complicated situation. Let's imagine we want to start the new business. We want to set up the new companies. So we want to join the disaggregated network community. So I have to think about which community or ecosystem is better for us to join. That's very complicated. It's also it's very challenging for especially the startup companies. So it's very complicated. I think that all of them, all of you, agree with the simple is best, right? So I like also I like the simple. I like the simple. So in order to make it simple, I like to ask again, TIP, to collaborate and work together with other community. Also, this is our NTT group's challenges and requests. And as I introduced, NTT group organized the ION. So ION is one of the community. So ION, of course, have to collaborate with other community and the ecosystem. So I think the TIP and NTT group have the same challenges or maybe challenges. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doi. And well, just to close, guys, we are almost without time, and we need to still fit a third topic today. But in order to wrap up, Dave, how do you see this evolution? I mean, if we need to take a look at maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, how do you consider this collaboration mode between SIs, between network function software providers, between infrastructure leaders in the market will look like, and how you are working to build that up? Forecasting, sorry, I know you're not a magician, but how do you see our future as a community?
Well, hopefully in 5 years we're still here, promoting the good work that we've achieved together. And I think it is a community-based approach, and you're correct. And we do need to work very closely with the people who are doing the innovation in other forums, whether they be in standards bodies or other organizations, because that's not the work that TIP does. But what we will do is we will help to productize it, certify it, promote it, and accelerate the commercial deployment of it in various different areas. We are a community-driven organization. So new areas of work that you guys as participants would like us to focus on, we're always listening. You mentioned the work that's happening in the fixed broadband space. This group was only created, I think, about 1.5 years ago, and they've already started issuing RFIs on OpenBNG products, and they're doing great work on open fiber access networks as well. So new areas of work, you'll see during this event that there's discussion on distributed AI, there's discussions on telco cloud, which NTT Data are greatly supporting that discussion as well. So I think that this is a journey that we're on, right? And it's a long journey, and there's other technology areas that we can focus on and continue to evolve and make sure that we have commercial success, and that means deployments. But once you are deployed in the network, it's about that lifecycle management, right? And that's really, really key. This is not about one-off productization and one-off testing, and then once it gets deployed, you step back. There's continuous testing, continuous certification, and continuous maintenance and development of new features, products, and releases that we're going to have to make sure we support in the long term as well. So that's the vision for TIP and the participants in the future.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you all, guys, for being here today, giving us quite a few time of your tight agenda to share with us this information, which we consider is relevant. And I would like to ask the audience to give a big round of applause to our second group. Okay, and lastly, in our Kraken's analogy, we encounter the head, network intelligence. Just as the Kraken head, it is its command center. Network intelligence is the heart and the mind of our network operations. It encompasses advanced software solutions that provide real-time insights, automation, orchestration, enabling precise control and strategic decision-making. Network intelligence, SMO, OSS, automation, like the Kraken's head, guides our network with intelligence and purpose. In order to serve this part of the network intelligence ecosystem, I would like to welcome Lucia, Enrique, Shujar, and Dahir, who are driving Kraken's head on each one of their organizations. So please, let's give them a warm welcome. So let's start by the basics. And Shujar, in your case, on Red Hat's opinion, why networks require intelligence? As simple as that. And how do networks become intelligent based on your experience, Shujar?
Thanks for having me here today. Let me ask the audience, can a human work without brain? No, right? So that's the intelligence piece. We need intelligence just to function. And this is the why piece for network intelligence. First, I would say adaptability, because network today, they operate in very dynamic environment. There are different network conditions that are changing over time. We see different either the network conditions or environment variables. So network has to have intelligence in order to adapt to changing conditions. So that's one. Second, I would bring in is security. I think we talked a lot about security here in the cloud infrastructure, in the disaggregation at scale. Security is a key factor within the whole stack. And if you observe the cyber attacks today, they are actually damaging the service provider networks. I think several infrastructures are actually getting compromised with that. So this is the second biggest factor that I would say we need networking intelligence in order to detect smartly some of those intrusion detection systems to identify security loopholes. Third, I would say efficiency and resource management, because today network operates, as I said, in different operating conditions. There are different routing profiles that are defined, different traffic steering that you're actually, you could apply based on time of the day, your network conditions. So intelligence is required in order to operate efficiently, as well as do the efficient resource management with traffic profiles. And lastly, I would say we did not touch base a lot on here today is the sustainability. With all the energy crisis that we're seeing happening around the world, there is an opportunity for us in our telco networks, in the radio pod core network, where if the network is not being utilized 100% today, it is the idle capacity either at the radio base station or at the core network. There's an option for network intelligence to bring in that form of energy savings, right? So there's about 4 or 5 key factors why we need network intelligence today. And then the how piece, how do we go and bring that intelligence into our whole stack, into our network. So the first point that I wanted to bring it up is related to this data analytics. So if you see the overall networks, they produce the huge amount of data today. From the UE devices, they have a lot of data that actually interacts with the radio network. Then the radio network itself has a huge amount of counters and KPI that are actually being generated in the core network. The huge data is being generated today in a CSP network. And if we bring in a network intelligence in order to make that data useful, then you could actually not only help monetize the network, but could also help in other areas where I said the how factor and the sustainability and bring in the efficiency within the network. So first is data analytics. Second, AI and ML. I would say, I think we talked a lot about the generative AI nowadays. It is pretty much the hot topic. And this has been a topic for the last many years, bringing in artificial intelligence and machine learning, looking into some of the deep learning models, the inferences that we can extract from the data that is being generated by the network, and using the network intelligence in order to capitalize and bring some of expose some of those intelligence within the application. Just as an example, the joint work that we have done with entity data, the performance management application enables some of those capabilities on top with the artificial intelligence using the data that is being produced by the network. And then third, of course, the automation piece. We still have to look into how do we continue to move away from the legacy operating models, the long deployment cycles, the manual tasks. It has to be automated. We need to bring artificial intelligence here, not to extend the validation or testing cycle. Several of us touched base here today. We have to bring in fail fast type mentality, or actually I would say win fast. So intelligence can bring some of those key factors within the automation in order to win fast, whether it be at the telco or any other industry verticals.
Thanks, Julian. And based on this excellent explanation on why, Dahir, from your point of view, what role plays the OSS in this network intelligent environment? And from your point of view as well, how open source and communities are enabling and accelerating this network intelligence adoption?
Okay, thank you all for having me today. You guys like to disaggregate stuff, and you like to throw the pieces in the floor. Hearing out all the discussions between yesterday and today, and whatever had happened in the last year or few years, I see a lot of things that are very well done. Okay, let's say parts of the network that are really well managed individually as silos, but it's really hard to have everything in place. Okay, so somebody has to have the ability to play Lego or to play puzzles and try to stitch everything together. That's what OSS is all about. Basically, OSS is no more or no longer the platform that will let you see whatever is happening. It's meant to be the solution that will stitch everything together so that everything actually works. So just to state a few examples, consider the inventory, for example. The inventory is a piece that will have much data, okay? But it's not meant to be anymore the solution to have much data. It's the solution to have the right data and the relevant data so that you can have the relationships between everything: equipment, services, resources, the cloud, all of it, okay? And on top of that, you still get putting more and more domains to the network. It's getting more complicated. You need to have the playbook. So inventory, topology, resource management, that is there for that. Assurance is going to give you what is happening actually in the network. So for networks to be intelligent, you need to know, you need to sense, you need to, if I pinch you and you don't feel anything, maybe I will impose an injury on your leg. Okay, so if the network is pinched, network needs to feel it. Okay, so assurance as part of the OSS is going to give you whatever is happening, whatever the network is sensing, and then to give you an idea of what are the problems that the network has. Okay, modern networks actually already orchestrate, already manage. You can do actions to the network that can be programmed. That is also cool. That is also important, enabling the game changer, let's say, which is artificial intelligence. Okay, but what is useful artificial intelligence to if you cannot put everything together and make it work for the sake of the business cases, having the right revenue, and having the efficiencies that you expect, and also be sustainable, as you just said. Okay, so that is the role of OSS, to stitch everything together. And I think the second part of your question was about open source.
Open source.
Yeah. So open source is my personal. I have a personal relationship or affair with open source. I really like open source, and I think that open source has given the IT and network community a lot. And not only has given us a lot, but also companies such as the ones here have proven that open source is a good way to go, okay? It is no longer like throwing software to you and you see what you do with your software. There are serious companies already in the market. Entity Data is one of them. Red Hat is also one of them. ServiceNow is also another one that can support open source solutions, okay? So it's not anymore about just having siloed or separate software components. In addition, for the new technologies, big companies, I'm going to say Netflix, I'm going to say Meta, I'm going to say many companies have already been outsourcing relevant, very relevant technology and having community around it. I like the Toy-san's intervention about communities. This is one of the things that communities need to do, to come together and build relevant software for the sector, relevant things that can make a difference. And of course, not only for, if you want to build a UI, you have open source. If you want to build a backend solution, you have open source. And if you want to build an AI machine learning solution, also have open source. Also have closed source. I'm not saying closed source is not a way to go, but open source plus closed source is success, in my opinion.
And let me bring this in, because you have been talking about OSS, how open source accelerate, communities are helping us. And I know Vodafone, Lucia, has been working since day zero in network intelligence approach. You have been doing several things around Open RAN. And in terms of Open RAN and SMO, what are your news? What can you tell us that you can publicly reveal, of course? So let's hear you.
Just today, we launched an article, Vodafone launched an article about the automation, how we are able to do a 5G connectivity in one click. At the end, we are working for several times in the RIC, in the RAN intelligent platform. At the end is the openness to third parties and to be able to do the optimization and the management with an innovative way, adding the IML and to have a more competitive solutions. And we added the SMO, the Service Management Orchestrator. AX is part, I think the RIC is part, the non-real-time RIC of the SMO to complete the automation use cases. So we are seeing the SMO as the key piece of the head, the intelligence as the Kraken part, to give to get at the end an automatic and intelligence network. We are doing several POCs, a lot, with several, I think, vendors about the SMO, how is the mature the SMO, what are the use cases that we can do with them, and also some, I think, more specific disruptive application over the RIC. Regarding, I think, the SMO, we are seeing, I think, at the end, for use cases that they are trying to touch the main actions. For example, in the first is the deployment, the zero-touch provisioning, how you are able to deploy in a more efficient way. The second is the operation sure, how you are able to see in a unique platform all the alarms, all the KPIs, and to do intelligence actions. The third is manage the cloud. I think they was touched in the first part of the session. I think how we are able to manage the cloud management. And the fourth is the optimization typical RAN use cases that we are doing now with the SON, and we have to improve with the RIC platform. Energy saving, traffic steering, and this thing.
Thank you, Lucia. And we have passed through open source, automation, Y, network intelligence, SMO, RIC efforts, Vodafone is conducting, but in general terms, this kind of challenge will have to bring everybody together. And from the market solutions point of view, I would like to get Enrique's thought on how you are guys approaching this network intelligence, and if you can give us some insights on ServiceNow into network management, basically the head of the Kraken. Enrique?
Okay, thank you very much for having us here. Previously, in the previous sessions, several quite interesting things have been said. And one of them is we are in the converge between the network and IT. At the end, is a momentum now. So our proposal is to help our customers in that line. So for doing that, we are pushing a lot in 3 different axes. The first one is to create or to propose a single framework for supporting all the life cycle of the service. At the end, we are deploying services over the network infrastructure. And that will give us a seamless interconnectivity and also a better approach for supporting the different stages of the service. The second axis is to promote the service layer in the sense of if we want to have an intelligence, we need to understand what is behind and on the sides. So we need to have a topology for making good decisions and for being able to know who should be in charge of what. And that is the role of the service layer. So we need to promote the service layer in our companies. And the third axis is the intelligence and the information. Information, no data, in the sense of, as Dair said, it's not a question of how many data, it's a question of the right data and to transform the data in the right information. Because at the end, the brain works as, I have the KPIs, thresholds, I have this logic, and I am able to give intelligence because of all this information. And the intelligence needs to be, our proposal is to be centralized in the service layer in the sense of, I know who should I delegate as the brain and human being works.
And Enrique, when we talk about network intelligence, it's huge. I mean, the topic is really huge. It's like saying the universe. What kind of framework standards, I mean, you mentioned right now framework, but what kind of standards are you guys considering in your strategy for network intelligence?
Don't you have an easier question? Okay. Let's start with trying to define what we understand by network intelligence. Network intelligence will give the capability to the network to support the services in the whole life cycle. Having natively the discovery of the service, the observability and the predictability of the service, the making the decision, and the continual improvement. We said previously, we need to make a continual improvement to check if what the decision I am making are good decisions. So this is, as you said, a very big piece. And not big, it's even like an iceberg in the sense of there is a strong part or a big part under the sea. So for us, is crucial the standards. We need to speak the same language, otherwise it's impossible to create a layer, an intelligent layer that is able to understand everything. So standards is basic for us. And the second is to understand artificial intelligence in a strategic way, in the sense of, nowadays it's very typical to speak about artificial intelligence, and all of us are saying generative AI, etc. But if you want really to have intelligence in your network, you need key pieces like, for example, conversational intelligence, search intelligence, for example, for being able to get two different problems and propose a single solution for a single problem that is joining both. It can be done now. Also, intelligence, task intelligence, for checking what is the best way for doing this, and even for helping the agents or the technicians. Also, intelligence for analytics. How can we check the continual improvement, if we don't have intelligence in the analytics we are getting. And also the typical operational for assurance. For sure, we have alarms and we correlate or whatever. And finally, the Gen AI, which is giving a piece on top of to make good decisions and to trying to find new ways of doing things.
Thank you, Enrique. And Lucia, from Open RAN point of view, and I will go later to the Gen AI you just mentioned, Enrique. Thank you about that. But which components or enablers are you considering as part of your strategy, which is your current focus in terms of network intelligence?
I think we commented before. I think for us, I think the main platform will be the RIC, the RAN Intelligent Controller, the near real-time RIC for closed-loop automation for less than 1 second, and when you need, I think, a cluster view, and the non-real-time RIC for, I think, all the network view, and with less restricted, I think, delays. The non-real-time RIC is included in the SMO, and the SMO enables also the management part. So the components that we are seeing in the SMO are the management function of the FCAPS collector, the RIC that we commented before, and also the orchestration, the NFO and the FOCOM, that they connected to the IMS, the infrastructure management, although this part is, I think, is discussion in the standard, if we need or not need the IMS to manage the cloud. And we would like also to add it in the SMO, some part of more the slicing, the connection with the slicing with other domains, the MEDAP to exposure the APIs, and some inventory part. And at the end, to have some framework that enables the DevOps part, that later we have to add it when we have more pace in the software. And yeah, the enabler for, at the end, to the RAN to exposure to third parties.
Thank you, Lucia. And I'm going back to Enrique's thought. And in terms of Gen AI, what kind of pieces are you bringing to this puzzle, Mr. Sridhar?
So just to piggyback on what Lucia mentioned about the RIC and SMO framework, I think one biggest part is also the O-Cloud automation that is actually coming along with RIC and SMO, integrating in a whole stack end-to-end automation. That's where Red Hat is doing quite a bit work with this, integrating with SMO and RIC with O1 and O2 interfaces, enabling the silicon layer capabilities as well. For generative AI, just to answer the question from Red Hat standpoint, I will answer in 2 ways. So first is Red Hat parent company IBM. They have been in the industry for a long time, being inventor of several mainframe computing, quantum computing. They've been using generative AI in their stack for decades. Some of the use cases with care, contact centers on the network side. So they've been enabling Watson AI as their framework, which is now called Watson X, pretty much in every environment, every industry. With Red Hat, we have adopted some of the frameworks within our product portfolio. So for example, I give an example is Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. This is the automation platform to provide the end-to-end automation and orchestration. We have added the capability to add the feedback loop. I think what's Enrique touched base, the feedback loop is important. So we have added the functionality called event-driven Ansible, which means that once the event is generated, then the automation is triggered automatically along with that. Because today, when you trigger automation, it's just an automation of set of tasks and the function that you do. But tomorrow, you can connect multiple automations through the feedback loop system, which is what we deliver as a part of event-driven Ansible automation. We also added the functionality in Ansible automation, which is called Lightspeed Ansible automation, that actually helps you build your automation playbooks with natural language processing. All you have to do is go and deploy RIC, for example, and then it will automatically create all the playbooks, including your cloud infrastructure, as well as your integration, left and right integration, top and bottom integration. It will automatically create all the playbook and a framework for you for deployment. That's what the generative AI brings to the table from network intelligence standpoint. It has the power behind with natural language processing. It has a power behind some of those search functionalities that you mentioned. It has the power behind to stitch multiple automation frameworks today in order to deliver this holistic zero-touch provisioning or one-click deployment within seconds, hopefully within milliseconds once we go to 6G. So pretty much we'll see more and more as we come along closer to pre-6G and especially in the next phase of GRAS.
Thank you. And, well, thank you, Shujar. Lucia, I will go back to you. We have been talking about SMO, automation, Gen AI, among other components. There are a lot of components, but these components bring us a lot of challenges. So which kind of complex challenges you have been seeing from the operator point of view in network automation?
Standardization. So at the end, the interfaces that you connected with the SMO and the rig are partially standardized, more advanced the O1 or the A2, but very delayed the O2 for the cloud management, implementation or the deployment part. Few ransomware vendors open the interfaces to connect it to the, or they don't enable the O1, O2, or the A2. And later the interoperability, because although it's standardized, later you have to do a lot of tests to integrate different components. And I think this is the main risk or the challenge that we have it now, that you have to do a lot of POCs to able that the product is enough mature to go to the commercial and to have similar features that you have it in the traditional network. Because in the traditional network, you have unique vendor, you deploy this, and it's ready to do. And meanwhile, in the Open RAN, you have to do the interoperability and to have the sure that the standards are ready to enable all the data that you needed.
And how do you see, Lucia, that this community, Telecom Infra Project, can support these specific challenges?
Yeah, I think for the standardization is more the O-RAN Alliance that vendors, integrators, operators, they have to push this standardization and the deployment part. But the tip, the request is to begin to struggle with interoperability. As we have different modules, how we can manage this module, how to integrate it. And this is one of the parts that at least we request to tip to work in this, I think, interoperability between vendors.
Thank you, Lucia. And I will give one more minute to Shujar in this one. What do you think TIP can support us in this journey, Shujar?
I mean, TIP is doing a fantastic job today. So I just wanted to congratulate and thanks for bringing all of us here as well. I think as Due-san mentioned, the IWN community, Red Hat is part of it, connecting communities, actually that would help. Promoting the open standards and interfaces, as Lucia mentioned, there's a challenge with integrating interfaces. Standards are not clearly defined, but promoting some of those open standards would actually help. And I think lastly, one important point that I wanted to make them aware is regarding the regulatory aspect. We don't really touch base a lot on it, but there is a lot of regulation that are actually, for example, FCC in the United States, at the big advocate of the regulatory bodies there, right? And same thing I'm sure here in European Union as well. So there's a lot of influence that can happen in regulatory body to promote some of those open standards, addressing some of those pain points that, as Lucia mentioned, or customers that are facing today, promoting communities. I think that would actually help the whole ecosystem at the end.
Thank you, Shujar. And Enrique, before we close, some final thoughts around network intelligence on ServiceNow side and on your behalf.
Okay, I would say we are in a changing world. So for us, all this disaggregation and interconnectivity necessity is a must and is a non-stop trend. Let's change your network into a fully service-oriented network, having a single framework and having a unique topology visibility. I will ask also reduce the number of standards, because previously was said that you could have a standard, but standard doesn't mean interoperability. At the end, it's a wrapper. But okay, when you have 5, it's absolutely impossible. And think on AI strategy. Don't think on isolated spot where you put AI. Think on a strategy for hooking all the processes with the different capabilities we mentioned previously in AI. Be ambitious on AI because AI could give you very good or very amazing solutions.
Thank you, Enrique. And in order to wrap up the session, Dair, I will ask you to give your final thoughts in 1 minute, please.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you, Hugo, for facilitating this session. Of course, to the whole crowd here. I think that collaboration is key. Networks will not be intelligent if you guys are not intelligent. Let's be smart. Let's work together. Let's do stuff together. Let's invent. Let's break fast, or as you just said, fail fast. And let's try to have a common sense or a common view over quality, a common view over service, a common view over specific technical challenges that need to be tackled. But let's be intelligent of partnering up, establishing the right links between each other so that we can create the best network possible for the services that we need to provide so that the users of the applications can get the best out of it. Okay, so that is actually, in our view, the way to attain that truly intelligent network.
Wow.
And I know these are intelligent companies.
Thank you, Dair. So for the rest of the time, which is known, I would like to appreciate and thank you for all being here. I would like to ask for giving a big round of applause to these panelists and all the team that came today. And hope to see you soon. Remember, we are in booth 14. Visit us. We have several things to share with you guys. And have a great afternoon.
It's close to midnight and something evil's lurking in the dark. Under the moonlight, you see a sight that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes the sound before. If I'm smart, then I run away. But I'm not, so I guess I'll stay. Haven't you heard? I fell in love with a beautiful stranger. I looked into your face. My heart was dancing all over the place. I like to change my point of view. If I could just forget about you. To know you is to love you. You're everywhere I go, and everybody knows. I looked into your eyes, and my world came tumbling down. You're the devil in disguise. That's why I'm singing this song to you. To know you is to love you. You're everywhere I go, and everybody knows. I've paid for you with tears, and I swallow all my pride. to be a joker, he just do what he please. He wear no shoe shine, he got toe jam football, he got monkey finger, he shoot Coca-Cola, he say, I know you, you know me. One thing I can tell you is you got to be free. Come together right now over me. Come together. He back production, he got auras gambled, he got on no cyber, he won spinal cracker, he got feet down below his knee. Hold you in his arms, share you can feel his disease. Come together right now over me. Over me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Welcome to this afternoon session, looking at open transport. Particularly this summit is looking at open optical transport. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Simon Sherrington. I'm a research director at Analysis Mason, and I will be your host for the next hour and a half. We have a really packed agenda with a lot of really great speakers. You can see their names up here, so I won't read them all in detail, but we have Anders from Telia, Kazuya from NTT, Kingston from PAL-C, Jean-Francois from Vodafone, Nigel from Siena, Vittorio from Politecnico di Torino, Abjit from IP Infusion, Esther from Orange, Oscar from Telefonica, and Matthias from Nokia. Welcome to all of our speakers. It is only an hour and a half, so for the mathematically minded amongst you, you'll work out that it's less than 10 minutes per speaker. So I'm going to try and keep things moving on at a bit of a clip. Speakers will give you an opportunity to ask questions if they're urgent. But if we're running short of time, we will have to stop that. But they've all said they'll be available perhaps later on over a drink. Definitely if you're buying the drinks to ask any further questions that you may have. We have a packed schedule. We're going to start with a keynote from Siena. Then we're going to get an update on the MUST process and how that's all progressing. Sorry, I pressed my slide too quickly, but I'll an update on the MUST process and how that's going. We'll have a talk looking at how open optical transport is impacting on optical networks. We'll get an update on GMPY and how that can be used as a planning tool and a tool for evaluating vendors. And finally, but not least, we'll have a panel session looking at the interesting area of IP over DWDM. So having preempted his slide by pressing the button too soon, I shall pass over to Nigel. If you could give him a warm welcome, please. Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Nigel Davis from Siena. I'm going to be presenting driving disaggregation and interoperability to enhance business value. So what we pull apart, we need to bring back together. So we've disaggregated the network. We've got a pile of bits. We need to bring them back together again. That means integrating. There's a challenge in integrating always. We've got the network of packet and optical devices now broken into more pieces. We've got maybe coherent plugs to put in routers. We've got to bring those together. We've got optical devices from different vendors. We've got to bring those together. How do we deal with that? We've got control systems we need to also bring together. So critical thing there is open standards. So right down in the device, we've got CMIS, OIF CMIS. We've got the guys there, some of my colleagues working on an interface definition for the control of the plug right down at the plug. And going to the other end of the puzzle, we've got TAPI, Transport API, which is very dear to my heart, which I work very deeply in that particular activity. So I'm one of the editors and contributors and so on. And TAPI is enabling us to connect controllers, focusing on photonics and OTN and so on. And the critical things in those standards are consistency of representation of some things. So we're aiming to give one representation of a particular entity, a termination point, that everybody then uses. But it's not just the termination points. That sort of gives us the words in a vocabulary. We code in Yang, that's the letters. But we also need to make the thing more straightforward. We need to have the phrases. And what we get here is the patterns of the way that the network is actually put together and consistent representation of those. And that's where the reference implementation agreement comes in, the RIA, TR547. There's also a TR548, but the key focus here is 547. TR547 gives us a set of use cases and requirements. We'll talk about the source of those in a minute. And it also tells us how we should represent each particular thing in the network, particular assemblies of things. And that's crucial when it comes to integration. And we in Sienna have both a northbound, which we present the model, and also a southbound where we integrate other vendors. And we've had a number of challenges integrating because of some of the patterns are not followed. So it's much easier if the patterns are followed. It's critical we have that specification. And we find that is a fairly unique type of specification across the other standards, so broadening that across some of the IETF work and so on will be important. And we've basically got to that position from learnings in previous standard activities. I've been involved in this stuff for now over 20 years, he said miserably. Over 30 years, good Lord. Anyway, we gained experiences on the earlier interfaces. We've learned how to build flexibility into those interfaces and so on. So learning and growing from experience is critical in this, and we need to bring that experience to bear in other standards. The goal is automation of control, and over the long term, we gradually build up the capability to automate control of the networks, and that's driven by operator needs, and that's crucial, because obviously they're the people who actually need to get the network to run, and if our vendors do something that doesn't help, then that's not good. So driven by operator needs, which brings me on to the critical role that TIP, OOPT, and specifically MUST in this case, but also Mantra are playing in that, where we've got for the first time, I think, really, a set of operators who come together in what you could call a collaboration, where they collaborate and compete simultaneously. They pull together, and they're working on providing the vendors with a set of requirements and use cases that are consistent. So when we find requests from one operator, we get a set of requests from another one, we understand them because they look the same. So that's an important aspect of this. The operators are driving standards work in a number of bodies, from my perspective, especially into TAPI in ONF, also work into IETF, and that drive's been very important to help us understand what's important. And we have our own ideas what's important. We get a good steer as to what's really important for the operators. And that also brings in a certification exercise where the interfaces can be tested and proved to be consistent with the requirements, and then each of the operators that picks that work up knows that interface is indeed conformant. And that's certification. Sienna, we received a bronze badge for our interface. We're going to carry on. Bronze is only sort of a first stage in the process, so we'll carry on with that and aim to get higher levels and so on. We received that this year. That's for the northbound and the controllers for TAPI. And the key thing is to enable best-in-breed capability. The challenge is balancing variety that we need to have as we innovate, so we each have our own different ways of doing things, with uniformity that we need to have a consistent mode of operation. And that's a challenge we're tackling in TAPI as we gradually evolve that interface, enabling different vendors' innovation. But innovation, as it becomes bedded in, and as one innovation sort of takes over, it becomes infrastructure. As innovation becomes infrastructure, you want it to turn into one way of doing it. So if we're operating successfully with a set of vendors and operators, we'll find a way of normalizing those varied things. And we're doing that in TAPI. I've been working with other vendors, with Nokia, for example, for a long time, and we've got a level of trust here. We know we're trying to for the best of the industry, we need to collaborate in this way as we compete. One thing we do need to do is converge the standards so that the standards become more consistent. So ONF have got a set of models, IETF have got a set of similar models but not the same. So I'm starting to do some work myself to try and help that convergence. And balancing continuity and change. Clearly we need to advance things, add new capabilities, change the way we do particular things as the understanding evolves, but we can't just keep changing willy-nilly. Because clearly, so I mean, Arturo was pointing out to me earlier that we need to make our next release of TAPI backward compatible, which we are doing, but it's really, really important. So continuity there, but also adding new features and changing. So that continuity through change essentially is a challenge, but we've again had some experience in that area. And driving ongoing evolution, but driving evolution towards what? So this is where we haven't got so much of a collective view, I think, but moving forward, I've got thriving together in the clouds, obviously multi-cloud environments. In the network, we've got disaggregated virtualized networks forming, so we understand that sort of capability is critical. Components start to get broken off and then reassembled using the standard strategies. But obviously, also open disaggregated control fabric, so recognizing that the controllers are still relatively monolithic. We need to find a way of breaking them into the appropriate parts. And the critical thing here is understanding where the component boundaries should be. So initially, yeah, we've got big lumpy controllers, but in the longer run, we need to be able to break out path computation things and break out other tools. The picture at the side there is showing a set of tools, routing, maybe some wavelengths, defrag, and so on, various tools, layer tools for examination and so on. And those tools could be from mixed vendors in a controller fabric. We don't need to get his vendor, I won't say any particular, his vendor XYZ's product, you have to have it all. You want some PC, you may find that maybe Sienna's PC is great for one particular set of problems, Cisco great for another set. Can I have both, please? Well, you either get one or the other. So we need to get to a point where we can get the mix. So that disaggregation is something we need to start focusing on and understanding how we can do this. And then, of course, taking a holistic view of the layers and environmental factors and so on and so forth. So the controller's actually assessing everything collectively together at scale without there being a load of controllers and all sorts of different assemblies. And the key to that is open, extensible standards at the interfaces and also an understanding of how those standards then enable components to interplay in the controller. That allows innovative techniques. I put AI on here, but of course everybody knows that AI gets shoved forward as the answer to everything, and then it isn't. Clearly, it's got to be used in the right way. Machine learning, again, in the right way. Genetic algorithms the right way. Some things bend better to algorithmic solutions, other things better to some AI on big data and so on. It's choosing the right pieces. But if we get the structure of the controller right, it enables those innovations. And then you can start looking at best-in-breed assemblies in the controller too. So best-in-breed assemblies in the network, that's clearly what we're aiming for, to get the right plugs and the right routers and so on for the particular application, and not say I've got router X and I've got to therefore have this optics and it doesn't do my job properly. Same with the controller. Get the best-in-breed assembly. So put together the right pieces in an assembly of control components to actually solve the entire problem. And that is aiming to achieve ongoing enhanced business value. The critical thing is business value. There's no point in doing it otherwise. Break the stuff up and it doesn't give any value, purposeless. So we break it up at the points where it gives value and collective value via balanced standards. The standards, we're not standardizing everything, we're enabling innovation and so on. So it's a balance of the standardization that tames complexity, so removes unnecessary variety whilst enabling positive variety of innovation. And that enables solutions of best-in-breed innovative capabilities. And that's really what we're doing all this for. As I said, the key thing here is, I suppose one critical point is though that the operators coming together in Must and Mantra is particularly helpful to go and control that problem. And I think it's the first time we've seen that. So, thank you. That's my presentation. Do I have I've got minus 13 seconds for any questions, anybody? And if not, you can always grab me afterwards and I can happily talk on tapping for several months, probably. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nigel. So next up to the stage, I'd like to welcome Anders and Oscar, who are going to give us a talk through the state of Must governance. Please welcome them to the stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we are going to talk briefly about Must. Okay, so I still remember a few years ago when a few operators joined together and said, hey, the SDN industry looks fragmented. We have so many different interfaces, so many different architectures, and we sat together and said, hey, we created the Open SDN Transport White Paper, and we proposed a unified way for the industry. And then some years later, we have a big bunch of operators. We have now, I think it's 9 operators that we have now, and we have managed to agree on a unified way. So what is the value that we are giving to the community? So with this, we have been able to tell the suppliers, okay, which is the SDN roadmap that needs to be followed in their product. So with that guidance, it has helped to develop their solutions there. And also now, we are beyond that, even beyond that phase of being able to have the definition. We are in the phase of being able to have a common methodology for testing the different products and the different and the solutions that we are proposing, how they fit in their products as they are today. So we are completing the gap. So you have seen we started a few years back with these unified architectures. We work in the requirements, and now we are doing the testing. So let's see how we worked in Must. So after doing this initial definition of the architecture a few years back, we created several work streams per technology. So we have one stream dedicated to the optical technology, and there what we have done is after creating a couple of years back the use cases that we wanted to see in our operation, we moved to creating the first definition of the technical requirement, then went into the detailed technical requirements, and now we have reached the maturity point where we gave or we awarded bronze badges to those solutions that complied with our requirements, and now we are starting the last phase, going for the silver badges. We are going to start testing in the labs or in the solutions and validate the solutions that are compliant with the requirements. In the IP, and there, as you can see in the optical work stream, we have like three main parts. The open terminals one, where we specify the interface of these open terminal devices. This is the one that is in the more advanced stage. And also we are reaching the technical validation phase in our optical SDN controllers, both northbound and southbound. That, of course, once we have all our open terminals ready to go, we will go for the optical controllers. In the IP work stream, the work that has been done after creating the set of use cases is doing the technical requirement document. This technical requirement document was distributed to the industry, and we created these detailed technical requirement documents, and now we are in the IP router side in the phase of doing the technical evaluation and starting to give also the bronze badges to those solutions that comply with the requirements. So it's a little bit a step behind, and then, as in the optical, once we have the routers, we will come next with the IP SDN controllers. And for the wireless backhaul, the work that has been done is sitting together all the operators, defining the common use cases, and producing, and it's publicly available, a first version of the technical requirements document. So this document is out there, is to be able to publicly available, so it's ready to collect inputs from the community. And lastly, so you can see which is the level of maturity that we have reached. In the open terminals, we have collected more than 10 responses of the requirements. So it's is a huge one. Okay? And there, we've been able to award bronze badges to the both open terminals and to optical controllers. And now in the open terminals, we are now in this process of providing the silver badges. Okay, so just you see that now this strategy that we have been following for several years, now we are close. I hope that in the next year maybe we are offering the gold ones, but I don't know. Maybe next year we are in that phase. But you see, this is step by step. In the IP routers, also we have even the complexity. We have a good engagement of the community with 5 responses from the industry, and now we are working also in this process of achieving the same level of maturity, and hopefully we will see later on. We have some small slots to talk about the IP work stream. So I hope that soon we will be able to give also badges. So now we can go into more detail with the optical work stream.
Take it from here. I'm not sitting there. Thanks, Oscar. So maybe if you move on. Let's go ahead and see where we are with the must open optical transport solution. This is kind of a background on what we're doing and why we're doing it. We have 2 solutions that we are focusing on. We have the solution 1 with a single domain partially disaggregated network controller, which is a optical OLS domain controller connected via proprietary APIs to a ROADM system from the same supplier. Then we have via an OpenConfig interface a connection from the controller to the open terminals. Then we also have a northbound TAPI connected to a hierarchical controller. The solution 2 consists of a single domain partially disaggregated network dual OLS optical SDN controller solution, which contains of an optical SDN controller on the top connected to an OLS domain controller via a northbound TAPI interface. We have the OpenConfig interface connected to the OOTs as in the solution 1. And then we also have the must MBI TAPI connected northbound. We have 2 different type of evaluations that we are going through. As Oscar pointed out, we have done the evaluations of the bronze badges, and there are a number of badges received, as you could see in the former slides. And that is kind of the theoretical evaluation where we give it out. But then we also have, as Oscar mentioned, started the actual test procedure of doing the product test, which will, in the end, we hope mean that the solutions will receive the silver badges. Finally, we have the solution evaluation, where we have a common integration test of the full solution, which will end up in a gold badge receivement to the different products. And the prerequisite is, of course, that the different products that are part of this have received a silver badge from the beginning. So we have done quite a lot during the recent months. We have a collaborative effort between the PSE and MUST working groups, where we are augmenting the standard data models to GMPY requirements to unlock a multi-vendor optical network planning and physical impairment solution. We have also had an open config terminal device manifest that we have been working on in the MUST working group together with the main optical suppliers. And that has resulted then that we have made an input to OpenConfig, which is on the verge of being disclosed now. Similarly, we have had contributions made for ONF TAPI, which will be available in Transport API release 2.4.1, which is available now, and also in TAPI version 2.5, which is coming soon, covering also the amplifier's physical characteristics through profiles. Finally, we have the IETF POI pluggable draft, which is considering the Mantra IP over DWDM architectures that we have been working on as part of their definitions, and you can see that, find that in the link below there. We have the following roadmap for the definition and modeling. We have planned for the MBI to have a technical recommendation document ready this year during Q4 before end of 23. Then we are going to work on the MBI test plan. That is our first priority during 24. So we can start to do the silver badge testing later on. For the SPI of the optical SDN controller, we are going similarly start to work on a SPI test plan version 1.0 to start to have a test plan, and so we can start to do the silver badge testing on that as well. Then we have for the optical terminals, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Open Config Terminal Device Properties publication that is coming this year. And next year, we will be focusing also on updating both for the OOT and the SDN controller SPI, the technical requirements document, since both are considering the open config. Finally, we have in our plans, let's see if we manage to do it, a gold badge end-to-end solution project plan that we want to start to work on. But it also depends kind of how many silver badges we can award. Without the silver badges, no gold badge test. Finally, we have other development areas also that we will start to work on. We will try to work in parallel in the group in order to make this rather extensive plan happen. We want to work with the test automation project plan, and we are in the middle of doing use case evaluation amongst the operators so we can prioritize use cases for the EMPY, for the optical planning tool. I know that many of you in this room has been waiting for this. Here it comes. We are talking about the MBI evolution. First of all, we are looking into the maturity, and that is that the test that we are going to do is still going to be done based upon the technical requirements for TOPI version 2.1.3. That's the target release for us. In the evolution, here it comes. It's 2.5.0 we are going for in the next release. But we are going to focus also on prioritized features from 2.4.1. It's very important for us to have backward compatibility between 2.5.0 and 2.4.1. So 2.5.0 needs to have backward compatibility towards 2.4.1. That's something that we are prioritizing very high. Finally, what this means for us as well is that we will have to maintain both releases during a time, and we haven't set the date for it yet. But it will be that we need to have a release 1 and a release 2 that we are maintaining at the same time. This means that we will have 2.1.3 and 2.5.0 ongoing at the same time, which also means that we ask all the participants that are sending in answers to us to answer, if you like, of course, for both 2.1.3 and 2.5.0. And we will maintain both and test both in the end. And here we have a summary of the use cases and the features that we saw for our prioritizing. For the 2.5.0-2.4.1 that we are going to work on. We will dig into deeper with this when we are producing the new TRD for this, but this is what we have for the moment based upon the information and input we got by this summer from the ONF TOPI. So what are we doing now for test and validation? I just want to remind everyone that we are awaiting DTRD responses with the submissions deadline for November 20th. This is the next window when it's closing. We also then thereafter will start to evaluate it and hoping to finalize the evaluation by Midsummer's Eve. Arturo will throw a party when we are fine with it. And then in the beginning of 24, we will hopefully award a number of bronze badges after that. Then we are also doing the existing tests about the silver badges, and I will move on to the final slide for that. We have been doing the silver badge testing in Orange and Telefónica's labs, where we have tested NEC and Infinera bronze badge awarded solutions. We have done plus 150 test cases, which has been covering the inventory and service discovery, client and line interface provisioning, optical transceiver capabilities validation, optical performance monitoring, alarm and fault management, and finally streaming telemetry as well. Test reports are provided. We are discussing and going through with them together with the vendors. And when that is finalized, the MUST Optical Working Group will start to go through this. And we will see what we have as a result for this, and hopefully during, let's say, November, December, we will have a feedback if we are going to award silver badges. So then I hand over to Oscar again.
Thank you. So what have we done, and how are we going to progress in IP? So in IP, at the beginning of the year, we produced our detailed technical requirement document that we distributed to the industry, and we started to analyze the answers that were provided by the industry. We noticed that the scope that we were proposing was wide and complex. So this is why we are in the strategy that we are following now, is that we want to have a gradual approach. So this is why we are going to release a new version of the detailed technical requirements document, in which the future bundles are going to be split into some basic requirements and some advanced requirements. So this way we can achieve a gradual solution. Also, based on the feedback that we received, we are going to split the functionalities per device type that they are oriented. So in OPT, you know that we have several types of disaggregated disaggregated open routers. So we are going to start, for example, with the DCSG features. Okay, so we don't need the full rich set of IP capabilities, which is extremely complex. So this way, I think we can start going and start implementing solutions based on a standard interface, also in the router side. Okay, so with this, we hope that and we encourage all our suppliers that are participating in the IP to collaborate with us in this new this new evaluation of the revised specification of the detailed technical requirement documents. And finally, some messages about all our work in MUST. We have seen that in the optical work stream, the strategy has been widely adopted by the industry. We have seen that it is the specification that we released was, let's say, good enough to serve as a base, and even now we are ready for the silver badges. So I think we are, in the optical, we are really good. So in the IP, I expect that we are able to catch up the optical work stream with this new progressive approach. We will have this new version of the detailed technical requirement documents, and we hope to get to continue with the engagement of the industry and even go further. And also, as mentioned, with this strategy of aligning the requirement document with the different versions of the disaggregated routers, we can align the requirements that we are needed with the requirements of OpenConfig, so we don't ask for more. And here we have what we've observed is that all the different operators in MAST, we are very aligned in the architecture, we are aligning the requirements, and this has proven to be ultra positive. And finally, just to remind that in MAST, we are not creating standards. Okay? We are using standards. Whenever we find that the standard is not good enough, okay, just we go to the standard, contributing the standard the way that the standard is accepting contributions, or we collaborate with other industry partners to fill that gaps, okay? But the goal here, remind, is not to produce standards, but always use standards. And you have seen at the very beginning that we started a few years back, we were starting 5 operators, now we are 9 operators. We encourage other service providers also to join here. In the OPT community, we have colleagues from all over the world, so I expect that we can even increase the community of service providers in our group. Also, I am very happy about the collaboration we have received from our suppliers, so I expect to continue this work and also keep the engagement even now more that we are going to the silver awarding phase, and just be patient, okay? So not all the products are tested now. Some of them are tested now. When the routers and the open terminals are mature enough, we will go for the controllers, okay? So just keep engaged with us, okay? So I encourage you to join us, and those of you that or have been, let's say, just a little bit less active, come. Okay, you see that the good success that we have with many suppliers, so come also with us. And with this, thank you for this part, and I hand over to you. And I that's the black screen.
Thank you, Anders and Oscar. It's clear we're making a lot of progress. Next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Kingston and Kayuza to talk to us about some of the implications of OS on optical transport. Please welcome them to the stage.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah. So basically, I'm going to talk about the impact of the open networking operating system on the packet optical side. So just a quick recap and introduction about the Goldstone or the packet optical NAS. This subgroup is basically the only subgroup in the OOPT which talks about or which is working on the software development side. And so what we are doing as part of this subgroup is we are developing the network operating system predominantly for some of the programs and the projects which is running inside the packet optical group actually. So as part of that, actually, we have developed this NAS, which is called the Goldstone NAS, which we call it as. And just to provide a high-level placement of the NAS, basically you have the different open routers with DCSG, DDBR, and the DAR. And then you have the simulation systems and the DOS systems. And basically the NAS predominantly targeted for the disaggregated open routers. Currently, we are supporting, the Goldstone NAS is supporting some of these boxes. So the Cassini, Phoenix, and with the Wistron FlexT and the DCSGs as well as the OpenBNG. So the HCore AGR 400 is under development, right? So to give a little bit overview about the architecture of the NAS, basically it's purely a containerized based, and thanks to the SONiC architecture. And so basically
predominantly, the Goldstone NOS is made for some of the programs which is running in the OOPT. So high-level overview of the architecture. So it consists of predominantly 4 or 5 layers, I would say 5 layers, and the top 3 layers talks about the management plane, and the bottom layer is predominantly talking about the abstraction as well as the ASIC management layer, basically programming the ASIC layer, right? So the middle you have the sysrepo, basically the configuration database is stored in sysrepo based system, and you have the different northbound API interfaces which supports CLI, netconf, GNMA and SNMP, and you have the southbound layer which goes and basically provides abstraction towards the control plane infrastructure. So we support multiple control plane right now. Starting from the tie to the microsonic and the tie gearbox to microsonic to the tie, and some commercial grade deployments as well, right? And so we also have a translation layer, because one of the important requirement coming is basically what kind of data models, the Yang models we need to support. So we have the translation layer which provides translation between the open config as well as the vendor specific things. Yeah. So these are all some of the trials and the deployments which is going on in 2020 to 2023. So predominantly, if you see from the OOPT side, we see deployment from Cassini as well as basically from the Phoenix side. So most of the deployments, what you see here is either coming from HCore Cassini or the Phoenix platforms. And just to name, the multinet is one of the important deployment which is happening with Cassini. And the other deployment, probably Aarna Savasan can provide more detail about from the entity side. So this is the high-level roadmap from the NAS subgroup. So you can split into two parts. One is from the control plane development side, and another is from the adoption of the new platforms. And basically from the control plane side, typically if you see the Goldstone architecture came from Sonic. So what we have done was we took the Sonic operating system and we removed the non-relevant features for the packet optical side, like the basic L2, L3 features. We removed it, and we have something called microsonic. And on top of the microsonic, all the other layers has been built. Okay. So what we normally do was we normally do an upgrade whenever there is a new release coming from the microsonic, Sonic, which we adopt to the microsonic. So that's one of the important ongoing activity which goes on the roadmap. And apart from that, other layer 3 features also is there in the roadmap. Actually, we were supporting some of the layer 3 features, but the latest migration to the Sonic has some challenges. So we are taking it for the next level of layer 3 features for the Goldstone, right? From the platform side, these are all some of the important development which we are planning. So some key thing was basically the support for OpenZR+, and then some open config related support for the IP over DWDM. So just to give you a little bit overview about the Cassini platform and what PALSI is offering as part of the Cassini platform, in general about the packet optical side, right? Just a little bit give an overview about PALSI. So PALSI Networks is a software services solution integrator company. And we predominantly working on the open disaggregated side. And if you wanted to explain or talk about PALSI, we name it as a integrator or aggregator in the disaggregated market segment, right? So this is one of the talk which I was talking in the last Fyuz, because it's really important for the disaggregated network ecosystem to have some specialized aggregators who basically connect all the dots in the ecosystem. That's where actually PALSI is trying to do. Okay, so quick overview about the Cassini. So basically, this is one of the industry's first, I would say that packet optical, open packet optical transponder came actually. And it is a pluggable module, so it supports the CFP2 DCO modules, which is pluggable, so you can just go for a pay-as-you-go model. And it is flexible, and it provides basically the programmable interfaces. Predominantly, it is again coming from the software side, and it has gone through multiple interoperable testing with multiple the transceivers as well as the DCO modules. Okay. And so what PALC is trying to do here, so basically we have adapted the Goldstone, and we just basically taken the Goldstone, the open operating system, and we just basically modified to run it into the Cassini platform. And we are planning for a silver badging right now, and a few parks and trials are going on right now. And as I told, basically we are trying to create an ecosystem for supporting some of these disaggregated networking deployments all across the world, predominantly on the India, because we see a lot of traction of some of these disaggregated deployment. So PALC is working very closely with HCore in terms of providing disaggregated networking support inside India, as one of that program is basically coming from the Cassini. And so what is the status right now? So basically the Goldstone Cassini, as of now, we are supporting 5 different the CFP to DCO modules, and PALC is providing a 24/7 premium support right now for some of these deployments inside India. And we have a live demonstration of the complete the solution what we have spoken, right? It is there in the booth 42, and I would say that we are close to the deployment right now. Yeah.
Okay, so from this slide, I would like to explain about the DOS and Phoenix and its related activities in NTT. So this slide shows our work on ecosystem for optical transport. So so far, we have developed the hardware ecosystem and its network OS, the Goldstone NOS, with various vendors. The left-hand side shows the Phoenix, which is a white box type transponder, and it is commercialized by NEC. And also, it received the silver badge from TIP. And then the trials are conducted by several operators like NTT Communications and MTN. And also, for the next Phoenix project, our new partners from HCore, Adtran, and Pegatron will join us. On the other hand, the right-hand side shows the switch bonder type white box suite, the white box. So not only supporting the max bonder type white box, we also would like to support the switch bonder type white box switch. So yeah, IP Infusion team is mainly contributing to this project, and we would like to validate the IP over WDM with coherent QSBDD. So I'd like to explain about these 2 topics. So first, this slide shows Phoenix and Goldstone validation. So as I said, NEC adopted and commercialized the Phoenix with NEC NOS based on the Goldstone NOS as a reference. And then several operators like NTT Communications and MTN are testing their validity, and the product has received the silver badge from TIP. So this slide briefly introduces the NEC Phoenix Solution TIP certification by NTT Communications and MTN. So they have tested and validated NEC Phoenix product compliance with TIP Phoenix test plan, and they validated more than 160 items under various line system configurations and various transmission quality. And then all of this test plan has been fully executed, and NEC solution has been proved to be compliant with the TIP DOS group defined evaluation criteria for Phoenix. So this slide introduces the ION Global Forum activities at Cosmos Testbed. So Cosmos Testbed is a large academic network constructed in US. So we are now conducting the experiments of automatic optical path provisioning and remote transponder, which are considered as important use cases in ION, a concept led by NTT. And NTT and NEC, who are our IZF members, are conducting this experiment with Porto University, Dublin University, Duke University, and Columbia Universities. So as you can see, there are so many artifacts from TIP. For example, the ZNPY and OPTTAI and Phoenix with its Goldstone nodes. So we have successfully validated the automatic optical path provisioning POC. And last week, ECOC had held in the Scotland, Glasgow, and we have received the best paper award with highest score, thanks to the artifacts from TIP. So finally, I'd like to explain about our recent activities. So we are now considering how to support switch ponder type platform of aggregation router A0400 from H-core. Also, we'd like to try to support other platforms from UFI-space or CSR type platforms. So as Kingston said, the Goldstone is architected as a container-based and modularized network OS. So for the controlling switch control part, IP Infusion's Oknos is used on the Goldstone nodes because Oknos has shows very high performance for controlling the switch ASIC part. So we are collaborating with IP Infusion team. And also, we are also utilizing the transceiver D from Sonic community. The containerized transceiver D is developed by NEC and NTT, and this module is introduced on the Goldstone nodes to control the OpenZR Plus QSPDD modules. So we would like to continue to collaborate with partners like IP Infusion, NEC, and try to work together with other communities like Sonic, and I'd like to expand our activities. Yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kezia. Thank you, Kingston. Okay, so we're going to move from open operating systems onto the topic of GNPY, and I would like to invite to the stage Esther and Vittorio.
Okay, thank you. We talk about GNPY. This is this project on the abstraction of the physical layer. I start to depict the evolution, and then Esther will go in more detail on the specific application. But I'm kind of